hallmarks of this conference has been the global speaker lineup that we have. And this morning we have Uwe Hook. He's been the creative director for Mercedes-Benz in Europe. He's lived in Germany. He's lived in various parts of the world, and at the moment he lives in Los Angeles. So he's the CEO and founder of BatesHook, which is into social media consulting. And this morning he's going to speak on the evolution and the future of CRM. At a personal level, Uwe is a marathon runner. He's done the 42-kilometer marathon for 8 times, and he loves traveling as well. So ladies and gentlemen, I give you Uwe Hook.
So this is me when I was young and beautiful and when my mother dressed me. So 20 years ago, I was living in Germany still, and I was working, for a year I moved to Orlando and worked for the Mouse, Mickey Mouse and Walt Disney in the MBA program. And 20 years ago, there was really no internet. There was the internet, but not a really public-facing internet. And I'm a big soccer fan or football fan, however you call it. And German soccer, I was not able to get any results when I was living in Orlando. The newspaper didn't print any results. So the way I had to get my results is I had to actually go and call my parents and my friends Saturday after the games were over and try to find out the scores. And during my time in Orlando, I also, my niece was born. And it took me 3 days to find out that she was born, and it took me 3 weeks until I saw her first pictures. So move forward 20 years. I spent, on the way here, I spent a few days in Dubai. And in America, we currently have the NFL playoffs going on. And they were on Saturday and Sunday. While I was in Dubai, I found a pirated stream so I could watch the games actually live. I didn't have to call anybody. I didn't have to go to Yahoo to find out the results. I could actually see the results live. And yesterday, a friend of mine, she gave birth to a kid, and a minute later, I saw the picture of that kid. So things have really changed in the last 20 years, and I would argue that in the next 20 years, things will change even more exponentially. So when we talk about the internet, it really is a revolution that we're facing right now, because what happened is Gutenberg invented the press, the printing press, in 1452. But it was still very hard for people to publish their own content. But within the last few years, we call that in the US Web 2.0, it became very easy for people to publish content. So you can create a blog within 2 minutes. You can be on Twitter within 5 minutes, and you can be on Facebook and communicate to the world within a few minutes. So it brought down the walls that were erected by publishing companies and media companies. And now my Twitter feed is competing with the New York Times, and your Facebook page is competing with Yahoo. We're fighting for attention all the time. All of us are fighting for attention, that people are reading our stuff. Yahoo is fighting for their attention. So what I'm talking, and what I also want to say is, I want to give some perspective where we are in the evolution of the internet. It's very, very early. We might be right about here. We have some elements that are floating around. We have a lot of gas bubbles that are popping once in a while, they're then expanding again. We don't have any galaxies yet. We're still very early in the development of the internet. I just want to make sure that you take that away from here, that this is not the end of the internet. We're maybe in a soccer game of 90 minutes, we're maybe in the second minute right now. So I'm talking about the evolution of CRM to social CRM, VRM, and I explained the term VRM a little bit later. But what I want you to do for a few minutes is to take off your marketer's hat and just become a person again. Not think about marketing. What's your name?
Vivek.
Vivek?
Yeah.
Okay, so please take off your marketer hat, Vivek, and all of you too, because when you think about CRM and what's happening in the online shopping experience is that every site that sells something has a shopping cart. Now the question is, why do I have, as a consumer, as a person, create all this data for these companies to sign into the shopping carts. I have 5 email addresses, and 2 of these email addresses are just there for spam. So I sign in for certain services, I sign in with my email account that I never look at. I just use it so I can access the site or purchase any products. Why can't I take my shopping cart to another site? Why can't I have just a single sign-on where it's my identity and I can shift it everywhere? Also, the terms of services. In the last iTunes update, the terms of services were 50 pages long. I bet you everything I have in this world that not one person read those. Not one. We all just scroll down to go to I accept, and that's it. And what it is, it shifts all the power to the seller. It doesn't give me any power. If I go to a grocery store, I don't have to go see a lawyer first and sign a legal document to buy anything. But if I want to buy anything on iTunes or on eBay or Amazon.com or any sites, I have to accept that. But it shifts all the advantages just to the seller, and I'm the guy that's behind as a person. And interestingly, 20 years ago, there were no loyalty cards. I don't know if do you have loyalty cards in India? You have them as well. So the insanity of signing in to sites, we have shifted that to brick and mortar stores, where we now say, okay, for you to get the normal price of a product, you have to sign in, you have to give me all your data, and then you get that $1 off, even though that $1 off is not $1 off. That's the normal price you would pay anyway. But we have to sign in now to Borders, Safeway, and all these supermarkets to get the normal price. The same thing happens in the US. It's very common now that you have self-service supermarkets where you scan your own groceries. A few years ago, somebody bagged the groceries for you. Now you have to do it yourself. What we're doing is, as companies, and the same is happening in the airlines, that now you have self-service kiosks, and we claim that's a new customer experience. But basically, brands ask people to work for them, to do their work that they normally used to do. So when we talk about CRM, this is a typical CRM. You Google CRM on CRM images, something like that comes up. There's charts like that everywhere. CRM systems are very important for companies. I used to I still work with them with an automotive client. I can't say the name. They rhyme with Monda. And they have 20 different divisions in the US that all communicate. They have all customer-facing. And 7-8 years ago, they didn't have a full integrated CRM system. What happened is they have around 5 million people in the database at that point. They sent out 21 different Christmas cards from each division to their customers. So as a customer, within 5 days, you got 21 Christmas cards. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. And what happened is that they lost 30% of the database in that year because there was no holistic view of the customer communication. It was just, every division was just fighting for the attention, and they didn't work together. So CRM systems are very important. And I'm not saying anything negative about them when you implement them correctly, because it's important that you communicate on a constant basis with people, and that you understand, for example, in the automotive world, when the lease is up after 4 years, people start to look into purchasing a car 6 months before the lease is up, and then within 3 months before the lease is up, they actually narrow down the choices to 3 cars. So that's a very important part of your marketing, because that's a benefit you have that no other company has. You know that. Toyota doesn't know it. Acura doesn't, not Acura, Mercedes-Benz doesn't know it, but Honda doesn't know it, because they know that they have the data of that person. The problem with CRM systems as they are right now is that the customer is not at the center. It's always the system or it's a brand. Customers are seen often as people that we own, we manage, we retain. We use certain words that almost describe customers as slaves. And the same is true when we talk about behavioral targeting. Think about the language we are using. And it's if you look back in history, we use all this war language because the people in Madison Avenue that started campaigns, strategy, tactics, launching campaigns, etc., they were people that actually fought in the Second World War. So they were used to that language, and that's why they applied it in the 50s to marketing. But the Second World War has been over now for more than 60 years, and I think we should stop being at war with customers. Because customers feel they get attacked all the time by our advertising. We target them. We have behavioral targeting techniques. But then people, especially in the US, you see an advent of people using ad blockers. They delete cookies. And most importantly, they completely ignore us. They don't even see our advertising. There's a term, it's very common in the US and Europe as well, called banner blindness, where people go to the site, they want to do a certain task. They don't see your advertising because they don't want to focus on that. They found a way, the brain just found a way to completely block it off. So the problem is that people feel like sheep. They feel treated like we herd them along, we segment them out, and then we target them with our messaging. And in the world of advertising, we try to always get people as a captive audience. We try to capture them. We want to get their eyeballs. We want to get their attention. And then we put them in silos. Our data is totally housed in different silos. Microsoft has a silo for their brand. India has a silo. There are thousands and thousands of silos that we all create. We all create the data for people because we sign in. We are asked to give them more information. So we create silos after silos after silos, and nobody talks to each other, and we have to manage that silo ourselves. And now we have the social platforms. There are thousands of social platforms. I mean, everybody talks about Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, but there are so many other platforms, music platforms, Pandora. I don't know what music platforms you use here in India. But that's also, we're creating data for people. We have Foursquare, which is really big in the US, location-based application. Are you guys aware of Foursquare? Yeah. Foursquare, think about that. Foursquare, I, as a user, built a database for them. Every time I check in, I built a database, I built a behavioral model for them to send me information. And people will start to understand that companies make billions of dollars with data that we all create. And at one point, people will come back and say, I want a share of that money. I want to get something back in return for creating this data. I think we are very close to that point. But right now, still in the social platforms, they're all still housed in silos. You have the Facebook data, you have the Twitter data, you have the LinkedIn data, and they're not connected. There's a change, though, that we have now as marketers. We have access to some of the data on Twitter and Facebook, so we can listen. I cannot listen as a marketer for brand A. I cannot listen to the database or access the database of my competitor. But on the listening platforms, I can actually I can find out what people are talking about. So this is an example of social CRM. It's very typical. I flew to Tokyo a few months ago, and for some reason, Delta canceled my flight on the way back. And I called them. I saw in the database that the flight actually wasn't canceled, but they canceled my seat it was a glitch. I mean, it can happen. So I called them, couldn't get anybody on the phone who could help me. I sent an email, never heard of them. So at my last resort, I went on Twitter, and within 2 minutes, somebody answered me, and within half an hour, they helped me. And we see that a lot. I mean, this is a very famous US example. Comcast is a telecom, it's an internet and cable provider. They are known for having maybe the worst service in the US. You make an appointment, people don't show up, or their service breaks down and nobody gives you a refund, nobody explains anything. So at one point, a customer service manager went on Twitter. He saw that there was an avalanche of messages, people talking about Comcast, complaining, and he started to engage people. And he tried to help people. So every time somebody said, the cable installer is not here, what should I do? Should I wait longer? He personally called that person and then got that person in that house and said, within 1 hour, somebody will be there. The problem with that is it's a symptom that something in your customer service is broken, because people cannot get you on the phone, people cannot get you on email or other ways. Now they have to resort to screaming on Twitter or on Facebook or other tools. So you're paying kind of a Twitter tax now. They have 8 people employed at Comcast currently. These are the people here. This is a Twitter tax Comcast is paying for being a terrible customer service company. But social CRM is really something that companies with good customer service can use to listen to people, to improve not only their service, but also their product. In a perfect world, I mean, the holy grail of marketing for social CRM is this. So let's say you're Sony. And many people now, they don't go to Google anymore to search for products. So let's say you want to buy a digital camera. If you go to Google, you're going to be overwhelmed. Digital camera, you're going to get 10 million things. So what people now do is they go to their social graph. They ask people, anybody have a recommendation for a great digital camera? So they get some recommendations back. Now, as a brand, I can see it. I can see that people are talking about, that I'm talking about buying a camera. So I show intent. It's not I have to battle for intention. I show intent, I want to buy a camera. So it's kind of creepy at that point for Sony to serve ads. So they cannot really do that yet. But the holy grail is that at one point I'm going to go to a retailer. I go to Best Buy, like one of those big retailers. And let's say I check in with Foursquare. So I tell the world, I'm at Best Buy right now. The holy grail is that at that point, Sony can send me an offer and say, if you buy this camera right now, it's going to be $50 off. I showed that I'm interested in the camera. I got a recommendation from somebody. So that's interesting. That's something, I mean, once again, we have to build new databases because we have to suddenly sync up a lot of systems, and it's going to be very complicated. And I think that's something that might happen in the future. But more importantly, companies will become more social businesses and not just focusing on social media. Yesterday in one of those sessions, somebody said that social media should be led by marketing. I would argue social media should be done by the whole business, because all the employees in brands are on social media now. Not everybody's on Twitter, but everybody is creating content. So if you engage all your employees, you're much more powerful than just creating Facebook pages. And it's not, you see the chart here. And by the way, if you want any additional information, I'll be happy to send it to you later at the end of the presentation. You have my email address and Twitter, and I'll send you more information. Also a link to the presentation, even though it's more images. But it's more about relationship management than about transactional. That was the original thing of CRM. And you can also use social CRM to get more insights for all your divisions. So it's not only about selling, it's about R&D, it's collaboration with people. I work with a company that's based in Barcelona called Linkia. And what they do is they aggregate interests. So they, for example, can get a community of 100,000 marathon runners together. And they then, as a group, as a community, can go to Nike and say, we want you to create a shoe that does A, B, C, D. It's almost impossible for Nike to do it for one person, but it's very profitable and valuable for people to create it for 100,000 people. So these things will evolve over the future where people go to brands and say, we want to collaborate with you. We don't want to just have this one-way communication where, here's my product, now buy it. And the challenge with social CRM is still, now in the beginning, we just managed people. We owned them. Now we use their content to tap into their mind. We want to really see what they are thinking, and then want to sell them our product again. So we're going back to the image of people being sheeps. We want to sell them stuff. We want to consider them as users, as consumers, and not as people. Now, I would argue, and there's a new thought model that was developed by Doc Searles. Doc Searles wrote 10 years ago the book Clue Train Manifesto. If you have never read it, you need to read it. It's for free online, Clue Train Manifesto. He resides at Harvard, and he proposes a completely new thought model, a completely new marketing model. It's called Vendor Relationship Management, VRM. So currently, what happens in advertising? So my office is in downtown Los Angeles, and around 11:30 to 2 o'clock, on my browsers, I get messages, banner ads from local restaurants, because they know they have a certain segmentation. They say, okay, we want to target people 75,000 plus household income. They are living within 1 mile radius of the restaurant because the likelihood of me walking to the restaurant is very high. We target them based on time. So they offer me a lunch deal between 11:30 and 2 p.m. Now, let's say they target 50,000 people. They found 50,000 people of that segment. Of the 50,000 people, 25,000 brought their own lunch. So you wasted impressions. From the 25,000, 15,000 already made plans. So you wasted another 15,000 impressions. Of the 10,000 people, 5,000 is generally they're on diet. So now you have 5,000 left. And then you have vegetarians, and you have people that don't like your restaurant. They go to Yelp or other review sites. In the end, you're messaging really only 2 people that might have any interest in your product. So you wasted 49,998 impressions. In advertising, that's a very famous quote that's often quoted in conferences in the US. I would actually argue, and I think we can see that in click-through rates, the average click-through rate in the US is currently 0.01%. So 99.9% of people don't care about your product. So 99.9, now we can argue that it might lift your search. Absolutely, I agree with that. But let's say you wasted still 98% of your money. The idea of VRM is reversing the whole model. So let's go back to the restaurant thing. It's noon in Los Angeles. I'm hungry. Now, I have a tool. The tool has not been built yet, but they're building it right now. I have a tool now to say to companies, to restaurants within 1 mile radius, I am hungry. I show intent. You don't have to fight for my intention. You don't have to guess intent. I show you my intent. I'm hungry. And for 10 minutes, I open my data channel. I'm open to receive offers from you. So what that means is that I own my own data. There's not data stored anymore in different companies, silos. I own my own data, and I decide if I let you have access to my data. And once that small window of 10 minutes is over and you send me offers, I close that window. You're not allowed to contact me again unless I open the window again for your brand. Think about flying or when you go on vacation. It's so much work to find all the airlines. I mean, in the US, we don't really have travel agents anymore. I don't know if you use travel agents here, but in general, so I look at the airlines. I want to see, I have to research the airlines. Do they have good seats? Are the seats wide? How long is the flight? Is there a stop in between? Is the timing for me convenient? Hotels. I have to research hotel. I have to go to TripAdvisor, various review sites to find out, because I don't trust the corporate sites. I mean, they always have the most beautiful pictures, but I want to see what real people say about that hotel. Transportation. I might be a traveler who is interested in seeing everything in the city. Some people want to go to nature, hikes, etc. So everybody is different, and I have to research all that stuff. I went a few years ago, with my family on a 3-week European vacation. We went to 7 different cities. It took me almost 2 months to research that, to find the right connection and so on. Let's say I have all my data, all my past trips are stored in this data store that I own. And I go out and say, I want to go to Tokyo with my family in a month. Here's my information. Here's all my past information. These are all my likes. These are all my frequent flyer programs I'm part of. These are the hotels I like. These are the restaurants I like to go to. I sure intend, and now for 2 days, companies can send me offers. They can say to me, okay, we have this specialized customized offer just for you. Think about cars. It's such a, when you research a car, that's even worse than looking for the right vacation. Same idea. I have certain cars I would never buy. I'm not interested in receiving offers or getting any advertising from certain companies. But there are maybe 5 or 6 brands that I consider. So I go out and I say, for a week, you can send me offers from brand A, B, C, D, and these are my requirements. I want to have low fuel mileage, low gas mileage. I want to have a reliable car, et cetera, et cetera. And this is even bigger than marketing. My father-in-law, he had more doctors than friends when he was 75, because he went to like 12 different doctors. That just happens when you get older. You go to a urologist, you have a heart specialist, you have some guy who's your internal medicine, you have an ear, nose, throat doctor, etc. Nobody talks to each other. Nobody knows anything about the other person. So when I saw him for the first time 10 years ago, he took 20 different medications a day. And nobody was even considering the side effects or the interactions between those medications. Nobody. Because the heart doctor didn't know that he was taking medicine for his ulcer and for all his other problems. And this is a very common problem. When I go to a dentist, that's why I put it up, when you get a root canal, I have to carry my X-ray from the dentist to the root canal guy and then back, and then to take the report back. What I want to do is, if I go to a doctor, I hope I can trust that person. So what I want to do is I want to open my personal medical history, that channel, up to the doctor, so he can see everything that happened to me in the past, and then he can help me much, much better. Now when you go to a new doctor, you have to fill up 5-6 pages of history. What happened to you before, and I'm sure you're going to forget about things that you took before. They should be allowed to see what medication I took in the last 20 years, everything. And this will be bigger even, this will be big in legal, this will have legal ramifications, political ramifications. So it's not only, we often think as marketers very narrow. We just think about marketing, how we can sell stuff. But the vendor relationship model is something that has much bigger implications for society. So the tenets of VRM is that it's not the company that is the point of integration, it's you. It's each one of us. We own the data, and we decide if we want to share the data. The individual is the focus of interactions of vendors. It's not the vendor anymore. It's not the brand that's at the focus. It's us. And I control access to that information. Now, as I said, this model, this thought model, was invented or developed in the last 5 years. And companies are now, there are serious hurdles to develop this model, to bring it to life. Because we have to find ways that we can trust a company or some company that they will not share that information with anybody, because I don't want anybody to sell my health information or somebody have access to my health information or any other information that I find highly personal. There's a big discussion in the US about privacy, but I think that's much overblown. People are just honestly, most people are just lazy. They don't care. They just post pictures, they check in. They don't really think about it. But if you tell people, if you share with people that the information is being sold and that other companies are getting rich off them, and they can take a share of that and you get the benefits of it, that's a big selling point for people. There are many companies now, especially in Europe, who are starting to build these data stores. I went to a different conference in Europe a few months ago where I saw where people are starting to build these tools where they can share actually their intent, where they reverse the Google model, because as a brand, it's going to be hard for you. You cannot sit at a computer all day long. Somebody sends in a request for a proposal and say, like, I want to go to lunch right now. You can't do that individually. It has to be automated. You have to have certain parameters that are built in. But those tools are being built right now. And in 5 years, in 2016, when we're here, I'm sure we'll be focusing on VRM as one of the most important tenets of marketing and overall the internet. So never forget, Seth Godin is one of the gods of permission marketing and marketing. I hope you read his blog. It's worthwhile. He said that this is a revolution. I agree with it. We were really in the early beginnings of that revolution. Don't forget, we didn't even get started yet.